Hi everyone, welcome again to the Dr. Yembi show. As you know, I am all about weight loss, getting healthy and staying healthy. So I have a fantastic guest for you today. The one person that played an integral role in my weight loss journey. He doesn't even know how much he played a role in my life. And at the time when I was struggling, I was doing so many of what I thought were the right things, but they were the wrong things. And Coach Mike was there for me. He struggled. So I'm just honored and blessed to have you on the show today. Coach Mike is a personal trainer in the Anytime Fitness in Frisco, Texas. And I'm going to let him just come on here and tell us all about himself and what he does. So thank you so much. Welcome to the Dr. Yembe Talk Show. Thank you.
Well, as Inaka just said, and thank you for that heartfelt introduction. My name is Mike Bush. I'm a personal trainer in Frisco, Texas. I've been training for 13 years professionally.
Wow.
I've been a gym rat since I was 12 years old, and I'm currently 63 years old, so I've been around a while. It's been my passion my entire life. This is an encore career for me. I spent 31 years in the soft drink business with my primary career, and then I retired at 51, and then 6 months after I retired, jumped into the personal training industry because it's not a job. This is not a job. This is a passion. And I live my passion every day. Helping people do what they don't think they can is my greatest reward for what I do. And we all, no matter how distinguished, how experienced, we've all had life's journeys, and we've all been knocked down from time to time.
Yes.
And all we really need is someone to believe in us and know that good and fitness is an integral part of our lives throughout. And so that is why I do what I do. And I've been, 12 years now professionally, and I've had thousands of clients. Inaka at one time was a client. Mm-hmm. And we had a very fun time together. And it had its ups and downs, and but apparently something stuck at one point. So and you never, that's the beauty of being a trainer. You never know what you're going to say or what influence you're going to have. You just give your heart up to the people that you work with, and you invest as much in them as they're investing in themselves, and there's a reward that comes. So with that said, that's who I am. And I love getting up every day and working with my clients, and I'll do this till the day I die. So with that, Inaka, the floor is now yours.
Yes, thank you so much. I know when I trained with you, one of the things that you tried to instill in me, and even though I was non-compliant at that time, but one of the things that you really instilled in me was clean eating. I would never forget. I thought I was eating clean, okay? But I hadn't mastered even the meaning of eating clean and not putting in your body the things that you don't need to put in your body, and just trying to unlearn some of these wrong habits. I remember the time that I actually went on this fat diet, which was just nothing like but a protein diet. I ate protein and nothing else, and I kind of lost all my muscle mass and lost everything. So I went from one end of not eating right to doing the wrong thing, and that really caused so much damage to my body. But in your experience, if you could just tell us what you tell your clients, somebody who's listening, who's just really wondering, what really is this clean eating about?
Well, I use a very simple philosophy. I mean, there are so many different programs out there. They come and they go, and my simple method is, if God didn't create it, you shouldn't eat it. And that's, I mean, that leaves a lot out there, because there are so many foods that the world produces, whether it be, plant-based, animal-based, all the different forms of nutrients that our bodies need. I mean, we were built and we were given the resources to maintain ourselves by the heavens above. And if we rely on that and not the manufactured foods that are all over the place these days, I mean, they're so readily available. They're cheap. They're easily accessible. And, there's a reason why America is the most obese country in the world, and that is because we have the wrong foods easily available to us and at the lowest prices. So it's no wonder that people don't get lost in the minutia of processed foods. And when we get back to the original source of fruits, vegetables, meats, all that's been put on this earth for us, it's what our bodies were built for.
Yep.
And you can't grow, whether it be muscle, endurance, cardiovascular health. Our bodies don't produce without the proper fuel, and the proper fuel is foods in their original form.
So for someone who's starting off, I really want to get a little bit more practical. Let's say I'm starting off and I'm listening to you today and I'm saying, okay, the big thing is everybody says I'll start on Monday. So tomorrow is Monday, for example. I'm going to start my diet tomorrow. I still have a little bit of time. I can run to the grocery store. What do you recommend? Just being practical. I go to the grocery store now. What do I do?
You get three forms of food. You get protein, carbohydrates, and fats. And believe it or not, fats are an integral part of our nutrition. We need natural fat. Our body will not release the fat that it has built up within itself unless we feed our body fat. And that comes in the form of avocados. Is one of the best natural sources of fat that I consume myself, and I recommend. It's not that hard. But so you have to have a balance of proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. And when you do that, and you have to do a little bit of, you have to have an understanding of what types of foods each of those categories are, then it becomes very simple.
I like how you said that, because most of the time when we think about dieting, we're thinking low fat. So what you're saying is that we need to consume some fat, but it needs to be healthy fat. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah. The processed carbohydrates, which is, there's two things that I would eliminate immediately, and that is processed carbohydrates and sugar. Not sugar in natural form, which you get from fruits, but manufactured sugar, white sugar, and processed carbohydrates. You eliminate two things and you're well on your way to being on the right track.
I like how you say that. When I do teaching, I call sugar a fertilizer. White and manufactured sugar is like a fertilizer, because what it does is it increases your insulin level. And in turn, insulin is a fertilizer for the fat cells. So if you're out there consuming sugar, all you're doing is raising up that insulin level. And what it's going to in turn do is just fertilize your fat cells, and it will make you gain weight. So I like how you said eat natural sugars, right? In fruits.
Absolutely.
And in vegetables, and not the manufactured sugars that are so damaging. I once went out to the grocery store and I started to look at things that had sugar, and I was so surprised. It's difficult to find things that do not have sugar. And sugar is hidden in forms like high fructose corn syrup, which is one of those things
Absolutely.
taken off the market, but it's really there in everything, including things like mayonnaise, ketchup. They all have high fructose corn syrup. So I like how you said that about sugar. But anyway, Coach, getting back now to practical things, I struggled. I struggled with the exercise. I have several men and women who are really just starting off. After the pandemic, everybody has been on a pause. People have not been moving very much. And now the gyms are opening up. People want to go back into the gym and restart or continue with their fitness programs. So what would you tell someone now, for example? What's the best thing to do? And what's really the best time to exercise?
Well, ideally, the earlier in the day, the better, because you get your body activated, you get oxygen into your blood system, you get your muscles warmed up and active, the joints and ligaments and all that follow. Body's ready to take on the day. And when you restore the oxygen in your body, which depletes over a night's sleep, the sooner you refuel that engine of oxygen, the better you're going to be and perform throughout your day. So that's not to say that evening workouts are ineffective, because they're not. Any workout is better than no workout.
Right.
So no matter what time of day it is, but the earlier in the day that you can, the better you're going to feel.
Mm-hmm. Good. I'm glad you said that, because I also, there was a time when I did intermittent fasting, and one of the things that I found that happens is when you are asleep or when you haven't eaten for over 12 hours, your body has utilized the stores of the energy that you consumed in food. And so when you exercise in that fasted state, which is what you're talking about, you exercise when you wake up or as early as possible when your body has fasted, then your body has depleted what you ate from food, and then it goes to your fat cells to use that for energy. And in addition to that, then you also have increase in what we call human growth hormone. So if you're going to burn muscle,
Absolutely,
or you want to build muscle, you're really just better off doing it in the morning at that time. If you're somebody who's building, you can tell I build up a little bit of muscle in my days because I did intermittent fasting, but I do try to at least do some weights at home in the morning for that reason. But I mean, like I said, here we are in pandemic, and I'm just trying to restart. I've heard about cardio first, weights after, or weights first, cardio after. It's still a myth to me. Which comes first, Coach?
Well, ideally, you want to do resistance training or muscle building exercises before cardiovascular exercises. And the reason I say that, and the reason I follow that philosophy, is your energy stores within your body, cardiovascular, than training. Early workout time doing cardiovascular, you're going to deplete your energy source within your body before you get into muscle exercise, and then your body is forced to burn muscle, which is defeating the purpose of what you're about to do, and that is to build muscle. So if you will have a better source of overall body energy if you do muscle work first. It doesn't use as much of your energy source as cardiovascular does. So, and quite honestly, anytime that you have the ability to exercise more than one time a day, and most of us first of all, the majority of people aren't going to invest that kind of time.
Yeah.
But if you will just take 20 minutes in an afternoon or evening, that is when I would recommend that you get your cardiovascular exercise in, and invest the early part of the day, or your primary workout of the day. Invest that in resistance training, and you're going to get the best benefit.
You know, I just learned something from you today. What about, I would have to change a few things. Thank you so much for that. Now, this is what I do when I go to the gym now, and I want to run that by you and see how you feel. I would generally get on the treadmill or on the bike or on the elliptical for a few minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, just for warm up. And then I'll go and do some weights. But I find that when I do the weights, it almost seems like my heart rate comes down to a certain point that I actually peak. I go to the gym with my jump rope now. I'll take the jump rope and I'll skip for about 2 minutes and put it down and go back and do another 10 minutes of weights. And I continue to cycle about 4 or 5 times. And I do the jump rope in between to, you know, just to keep my heart rate up.
Spike your heart rate.
Yes, and I think it really helps me burn more calories. I don't know if that makes any sense, or what do you think about that?
No, well, what you're doing is most effective. What happens with resistance training, and this is where I come into play, especially with my clients. When you're doing resistance training, you're going from one exercise to another, or you're going from one set on an exercise, resting, and then starting a second set on the same exercise. No matter what your rotation is, time is of critical importance, because when you get into spiking and dropping and spiking and dropping your heart rate, that is an exercise program. A lot of times the best way to maintain an 85% of your maximum heart rate throughout resistance training is in the muscle groups that you combine within one workout.
Okay.
If you're doing a push-pull routine, you're using one set of muscles on the push exercises, and you're using a totally separate set of muscles on pull exercises. The reason that's such a benefit is you don't rest. You go from a push exercise to a pull exercise with less than 1 minute of rest, and that keeps your heart rate close to that 85% fat burning zone of exercise. When you're using the same muscle group, your muscles are going to fatigue and you're going to need rest.
Right.
And so that's what causes the heart rate to come down. So it really is all a matter of how you design your resistance training program for the day, not for the week, but for that individual workout. You've got to have more than one muscle group involved if you want to keep that heart rate up. And what you're doing, Inaka, by doing the jump rope, that's basically high intensity interval training that you're throwing in the middle of a resistance program. And there's nothing wrong with that. That is good. But if you want to prevent having to do that, then you might look at the makeup of your resistance.
I see. And one of the things that, like you just touched on, I like to do compound exercises.
Right.
Meaning I would do maybe like an inchworm into a plank, or an inchworm, and finish that off with the push-ups, which I never liked.
I remember.
I'm now the push-up queen. I mean, I can do so many push-ups. It's interesting. But what do you think about compound exercises, for example? And then in addition to that, I wanted to make this a two-part question. Compound exercises, what do you think? And then how often, that's the biggest question, how often should you work different body parts? For example, lower body, upper body, back, core. How often should you work this? I mean, what's the formula? What's the best formula?
Well, that's a very big question, and it's gonna require a lengthy answer because there is no one perfect workout routine.
Yeah.
I mean, we all each have our own DNA because we're all individual. And, you know, I can write the most scientific, productive workout routine known to man. But if the client doesn't like those types of exercises, we're not going to have a lot of success because there's going to be resistance and training the client throughout the whole program.
Yeah.
So there is not a bad philosophy of exercise. All forms of exercise have their purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So it really depends on what the client wants and what the client prefers, because you can hit muscle groups in a million different ways. It doesn't have to be under a straight bar or using dumbbells. I mean, bands and the TRX that you mentioned earlier. There are so many different ways to attack muscle groups. And so first and foremost, what I do is I want to know what the client prefers.
Yep.
And then I'm going to build their program based on their preferences. And then I'll start trickling in exercises that they don't necessarily prefer, but because into the style of exercising that we do.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that being said, exercises are the most efficient exercises because they recruit the largest amount of muscle work.
Okay.
And what I prefer to do is to couple compound exercises with isolation exercises. And that's called a post-exhaust workout schedule,
Mm-hmm.
where you do a compound exercise. Let's just say you're working your back, and you do an exercise that incorporates both sides of your back, both arms,
Mm-hmm.
and it's multi-joint. You do that exercise, and then you follow that with an isolation of side to side, so that you get all the way into the depths of tissue. Compound exercises recruit more muscle, but they don't necessarily dig into the individual muscle. Isolation exercises will reach the depths of the muscle tissue better than that compound exercise will do. That's why I like to combine them, because by the time you finish that cycle, that muscle is spent, which it needs to. I mean, we all know, and if we don't, we should know, the only way to grow muscle is to first tear it down.
Yeah.
And so if you only partially tear it down, then you're only going to get a partial benefit from it. But when you fully exhaust that muscle group, then that's when you're going to get the greatest reward in muscle growth from it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like how you said that. And there's one thing that stood out to me, and this is going to be the last question before we end this session. Okay. Isolation exercises, you talked about that. And the question is, I get this all the time, and I just want to see what your answer would be, is it possible to lose the weight in one part of your body? Some women come to me because of their arms. I want to lose weight in my arms. I want to lose weight in my thighs. I want to get rid of this belly. Is it possible, Coach? Or can you isolate those body parts and lose weight from those body parts?
No, but where you're going to lose it first is where it at least is. The trouble areas and this is just reality. The trouble areas, and for most people, is where the most amount of fat is stored within their body. And that's why they're trouble areas, because most visible. So to answer the question, no, you cannot spot reduce. It's impossible.
Mhm.
You can spot grow muscle by the different muscle groups that you intensify, but
That's what
you can't demand what fat group your body burns away first, second, or last. It chemical makeup within your body, and you don't have any
genetic.
control of it. So,
Right, right.
but if you want to get it done, then you find the most efficient and most productive exercise routine for you, and a heart rate monitor really helps you define that, because you record your caloric burn during a workout, how efficient you're being or not. So you have to have a form of measurement, and that's the heart rate monitor is the most effective that I know.
Interesting. I'm going to ask actually one last question, just really for myself.
Okay.
Running.
Yes.
You know, I'm a big runner.
I know.
What's the best, because I understand when I started building up my muscles and just really training, strengthening my leg muscles, my core muscles, it improved the efficiency of my running. But I still have the question in my mind, what's the one best exercise apart from running and training and practicing running? What's the best exercise for a runner? Is there such a thing?
Well, it depends on what result you're looking for. If you're wanting, what is your goal? When you say the best exercise for runners, are you talking about endurance and cardiovascular health for your distance running, or what?
I'm talking about distance running, injury-free. My big thing is injury-free. So I'm always thinking I should build my lower body muscles in order not to injure myself. Because I don't know if you remember, when I did my first marathon, when I first showed up in the gym in Frisco, I was so heavy, so heavy. And I did that first marathon and I actually sprained, I don't remember which foot it was. And that put me for months and months and months. So what's the best exercises just to strengthen this muscle so that you can come out of a long run injury-free?
The culprit of most lower body injuries is in your hips. The flexibility and the mobility that you have within your hips, that is usually where injury starts from.
Okay.
So the more flexible, the more mobile your hip sockets are, your hip flexors and your all of the tendons and ligaments around and within your hip area, the stronger and the more mobile that area is, the least amount of injuries you're going to occur from it. Ankles, knees, and all the way into hip and lower back, those injuries primarily occur from stiffness in your hips, because you're compensating at the top and you're making adjustments down low when you don't even know it.
Interesting. So how do you overcome that? Is it with stretching or stretching exercises?
A lot of mobility work with hips and these and resistance bands are some of the best you can do, because you have constant resistance, even though you're not pushing a lot of weight. It's body movements, but you're moving those body that body with resistance, and it's constant. It doesn't release. So I could send you some, and I certainly use it with my clients locally. We don't do a leg day without starting with hip mobility work first.
Good. Well, thank you so much, Coach Mike. I really appreciate you. Thank you for all that you've brought for us today. I'm sure our listeners will be able to take some points that you've shared with us today and apply them to their health and wellness journey immediately. So lastly, I would just like to, I know where to find you, but if you could share with everybody else where we can find you, how do we get to you? How do we get to work with you? Because working with you is the ultimate best for me. You're the last trainer that I worked with, and I still remember all the things that you taught me. Honestly, I walk in the gym today, I see those TRX cables, I'm like, I want to go try to look at them. So please tell our audience where to find you.
Well, first of all, I'll just give you my phone number because my direct line is 214-704-0779.
Okay.
That's the best and easiest way to contact me. I will leave my business card with you, and you can publish that if you wish, and that has my email address and the phone number at the gym that I work from.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. I truly appreciate